Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they wake up without a clear reason to move forward. Start with your why, because without it, even the strongest effort feels empty and directionless. Every action you take, every decision you make, and every step you move forward either connects to something meaningful or slowly drains your energy. When you don't define your reason, the world defines it for you, and that's where distraction begins to win over discipline. People often chase goals because they look impressive, not because they feel aligned, and that's why they burn out halfway through the journey. Your why is not a slogan or a temporary burst of motivation. It is the quiet force that keeps you grounded when things get uncomfortable. It's what makes you continue when no one is watching, when results are slow, and when doubt starts to creep in. Without it, you rely on motivation, and motivation is unreliable. Some days it's there, most days it's not. But purpose does not disappear just because you feel tired. Purpose stays even when everything else feels uncertain. When you truly understand why you are doing something, your focus sharpens. You stop chasing everything and start committing to what actually matters. Clarity removes hesitation. It removes the need for constant validation. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone because your direction is internally driven. And that kind of clarity is powerful because it eliminates noise and replaces it with intention. A strong why also changes how you handle struggle. Instead of seeing obstacles as signs to quit, you begin to see them as part of the process. Challenges stop feeling like punishment and start feeling like preparation. When your purpose is clear, pain gains meaning. It becomes something you move through, not something you run from. That shift alone separates those who keep going from those who stop too soon. Most people underestimate how much energy they waste on things that don't matter. They say yes to distractions. They follow paths that don't excite them, and they spend time trying to fit into expectations that were never theirs. But when your why is defined, you naturally start saying no more often. You protect your time, your focus, and your energy because you understand their value. You become more intentional, and that intention builds momentum. Starting with your why also creates resilience. It anchors you during uncertainty. There will be days when results are invisible, when effort feels unnoticed, and when progress seems slow. In those moments, logic won't keep you going. External rewards won't be enough. Only a deep internal reason will push you to take one more step. That's the difference between people who stop when it gets hard and those who keep moving no matter what. Your why doesn't have to be loud or dramatic. It doesn't need approval from others. It just needs to be real to you. It could be growth, freedom, responsibility, or the desire to build something meaningful. What matters is that it resonates deeply enough to guide your actions daily. Because when your reason is strong, your actions become consistent. And when your actions are consistent, results become inevitable. Every day you wake up, you have a choice. You can move with intention or drift without direction. You can build something meaningful or stay busy with things that don't matter. Starting with your why is what turns ordinary days into purposeful ones. It transforms effort into impact and time into progress. And once you begin living with that clarity, everything you do starts to carry weight, direction, and meaning. Most people don't lose because they lack ability. They lose because they stop before consistency has time to compound. Consistency over intensity is the quiet discipline that separates those who dream from those who actually achieve. Intensity feels powerful in the moment. It gives you that rush, that sense of doing something extraordinary, but it fades quickly. What truly builds results is not how hard you go once, but how often you show up when you don't feel like it. The problem is, most people rely on bursts of motivation, and when that disappears, so does their effort. Consistency doesn't look impressive at first. It's repetitive, sometimes boring, and often unnoticed. There are no instant rewards, no dramatic breakthroughs in the beginning, but that's exactly why it works. While others are chasing quick wins, consistency is quietly building a foundation that cannot be shaken. Every small action repeated daily compounds into something powerful over time. When you choose consistency, you shift your focus from doing everything at once to doing the right things repeatedly. You stop overwhelming yourself with unrealistic expectations and start building habits that are sustainable. This is where real growth happens. Not in extreme effort that lasts for a few days, but in steady action that continues for months and years. Intensity is often driven by emotion. You feel excited, so you go all in. You feel motivated, so you push yourself to the limit. But emotions are temporary. They change with circumstances, mood, and environment. Consistency, on the other hand, is built on commitment. It doesn't depend on how you feel. It depends on what you decide to do regardless of how you feel. The danger of intensity is that it creates a cycle. You go hard, you burn out, you stop, and then you start again. This cycle feels like progress, but it's actually stagnation. You keep resetting instead of building. Consistency breaks that cycle. It allows you to keep moving forward without losing momentum. Even on your worst days, you do something, and that something keeps the chain unbroken. Another powerful aspect of consistency is trust. When you show up for yourself every day, you start building self-trust. You prove to yourself that you can rely on your own actions. That confidence doesn't come from one big achievement. It comes from hundreds of small promises kept over time. And once that trust is built, your mindset changes. You stop doubting your ability to follow through. Consistency also simplifies success. You don't need complex strategies or perfect timing. You need clarity and repetition. You need to identify what matters and commit to it daily. Over time, those repeated actions become part of who you are. They stop feeling like effort and start feeling like identity. You are no longer trying to be consistent. You become someone who is consistent. It's important to understand that consistency doesn't mean perfection. There will be days when you fall short, when your effort isn't your best, but consistency is about not quitting. It's about returning the next day and continuing the process. Progress is not built on flawless execution. It's built on persistence. When you embrace consistency over intensity, you stop chasing short-term excitement and start building long-term strength. You become patient, focused, and resilient. You understand that success is not a single moment, but a series of actions repeated over time. And in that repetition, in that discipline, you create something that intensity alone can never achieve, because in the end, it's not the strongest burst of effort that wins. It's the steady rhythm of showing up again and again. Long after the excitement has faded, most people think discipline limits their life. But the truth is, a lack of discipline is what keeps them trapped. Discipline creates freedom, even though at first it feels like the opposite. It feels restrictive, uncomfortable, and demanding. It asks you to wake up early when you want to sleep, to stay focused when you want distraction, to keep going when you feel like stopping. But what most people don't realize is that every moment of discipline is building something far greater than temporary comfort. It is building control, and control is where freedom begins. Without discipline, your life is controlled by impulses. You do what feels easy, what feels good in the moment, and what requires the least effort. But those small choices, repeated over time, create limitations. They limit your growth, your opportunities, and your potential. What feels like freedom in the moment slowly becomes a form of restriction. You become dependent on comfort, and comfort keeps you from moving forward. Discipline shifts that dynamic. It puts you back in control of your actions. Instead of reacting to every urge, you begin to respond with intention. You decide what matters and you commit to it, regardless of how you feel. That shift is powerful because it removes randomness from your life. Your progress is no longer accidental, it becomes deliberate. When you practice discipline daily, you start building structure. And structure is not a cage, it's a framework that supports your growth. It allows you to focus your energy on what truly matters instead of wasting it on distractions. It gives your days direction, and that direction creates clarity. You no longer feel lost or overwhelmed because you know what needs to be done. One of the biggest misconceptions about discipline is that it takes away freedom. In reality, it gives you more options. When you are disciplined with your time, you gain more time. When you are disciplined with your habits, you gain better health, stronger skills, and greater confidence. These are the things that expand your choices. They open doors that would otherwise remain closed. Discipline also builds resilience. Life will not always go according to plan. There will be challenges, setbacks, and unexpected obstacles. Without discipline, those moments can easily throw you off track. But when you are disciplined, you have a system to fall back on. You don't rely on motivation or circumstances. You rely on habits that keep you moving forward even when things get difficult. Another powerful aspect of discipline is the sense of self-respect it creates. Every time you follow through on what you said you would do, you strengthen your belief in yourself. You prove that your actions are not controlled by excuses or emotions. That self-respect becomes a foundation for confidence. Not the kind that comes from external validation, but the kind that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. Freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want in every moment. True freedom is the ability to choose the life you want and have the capacity to build it. Discipline is what gives you that capacity. It gives you the ability to stay focused on long-term goals instead of being pulled in every direction by short-term desires. There is a quiet power in discipline. It doesn't need attention or recognition. It works in the background, shaping your habits, your mindset, and your results. Over time, those small disciplined actions create a life that feels more open, more controlled, and more aligned with who you want to become. Because in the end, discipline is not about restriction, it's about liberation. It's about removing the limits that come from inconsistency and replacing them with strength, clarity, and direction. And when that happens, you don't just feel free, you actually become free in the way you live, the choices you make, and the future you create most. People stay stuck not because they lack ability, but because they wait for perfect conditions that never arrive. Focus on progress, not perfection, because perfection is one of the most convincing forms of procrastination. It disguises itself as high standards, but in reality, it delays action. It convinces you to wait, to prepare more, to fix every detail before you begin. And while you're waiting for everything to be right, time keeps moving, opportunities pass, and nothing actually changes. Progress, on the other hand, is built on movement. It values action over hesitation. It understands that growth comes from doing, not overthinking. When you shift your focus to progress, you give yourself permission to start before you feel ready. You accept that the first step will not be perfect, and that's exactly what makes it powerful. Perfection creates pressure. It sets unrealistic expectations that make every step feel heavy. You begin to fear mistakes, and that fear slows you down. You overanalyze, you second guess, and eventually you stop moving altogether. Progress removes that pressure. It replaces fear with momentum. It allows you to make mistakes, learn from them, and keep going without losing confidence. When you focus on progress, you start measuring success differently. Instead of asking if everything is flawless, you ask if you move forward. Even the smallest improvement becomes valuable, one step, one effort, one adjustment at a time, and over time, those small steps create a transformation that perfection alone could never achieve. Another powerful shift happens in your mindset. You stop seeing mistakes as failures and start seeing them as feedback. Every error becomes a lesson. Every setback becomes information. This perspective keeps you moving. It keeps you engaged in the process instead of discouraged by the outcome. And that continuous learning is what drives real growth. Perfection also isolates you. It keeps your ideas hidden, your work unfinished, and your potential unrealized. You wait for the right moment to share, the right level of skill, the right version of yourself. But that moment rarely comes. Progress pushes you to act despite uncertainty. It encourages you to show up as you are and improve along the way. Consistency becomes easier when you focus on progress. You are no longer trying to deliver something flawless every time. You are simply trying to do a little better than before. That makes the process sustainable. It keeps you from burning out, and it builds a rhythm that carries you forward even on difficult days. There is also a deeper level of confidence that comes from choosing progress. It's not based on achieving perfection, but on trusting your ability to adapt and improve. You begin to believe that no matter what happens, you can figure it out. That belief removes hesitation. It replaces doubt with action. Progress builds momentum, and momentum creates results. The more you move, the easier it becomes to keep moving. The more you improve, the clearer your direction becomes. Over time, what once felt difficult starts to feel natural, and that is how real success is built, not through perfect moments, but through consistent progress. When you let go of perfection, you free yourself from unrealistic expectations and unnecessary pressure. You allow yourself to grow at a natural pace. You give yourself the space to experiment, to fail, and to evolve. And in that process, you don't just achieve more, you become stronger, more resilient, and more capable with every step you take forward. Most people don't lose their direction alone. They lose it slowly through the energy they tolerate every single day. Surround yourself with the right energy, because your environment is not just a backdrop. It is a force that shapes your thinking, your behavior, and ultimately your future. Whether you realize it or not, the people you spend time with, the conversations you engage in, and the atmosphere you place yourself in are constantly influencing your mindset. You don't stay the same in an environment. You either grow into it or shrink within it. Energy is contagious. If you are constantly around negativity, doubt, and limitation, it slowly becomes your normal. You begin to think smaller, hesitate more, and question your own potential. Not because you lack ability, but because the environment around you reinforces those beliefs. Over time, that influence becomes invisible, but its impact is undeniable. It affects how you see yourself and what you believe is possible. On the other hand, when you surround yourself with the right energy, everything begins to shift. You are exposed to growth, to ambition, to people who challenge you to think differently. Conversations become more meaningful, ideas become bigger, standards become higher. You begin to elevate without even realizing it, simply because the environment demands more from you. This doesn't mean you need a perfect circle or constant positivity. It means you need alignment. You need people who respect your growth, who encourage your progress, and who hold you accountable when you fall short. The right energy is not always comfortable, but it is always constructive. It pushes you forward instead of pulling you back. Many people underestimate how much their surroundings affect their discipline. You might have strong intentions, clear goals, and a desire to improve, but if your environment constantly distracts you, drains you, or discourages you, it becomes harder to stay consistent. It's not just about willpower, it's about influence. And influence is powerful because it operates daily, shaping your actions in subtle ways. Choosing the right energy also requires difficult decisions. It may mean creating distance from certain people, stepping away from environments that no longer serve you, or saying no to situations that don't align with your goals. These choices are not easy, but they are necessary. Growth often requires separation from what feels familiar in order to move toward what is beneficial. Another important aspect is the energy you bring into your own environment. It's not only about what you receive, but also what you contribute. You become part of someone else's surroundings. Your mindset, your attitude, and your behavior influence others just as much as they influence you. When you choose to show up with intention, focus, and positivity, you elevate not only yourself, but also the people around you. Over time, the right environment creates a ripple effect. It strengthens your habits, sharpens your focus, and reinforces your purpose. You find it easier to stay disciplined, easier to remain consistent, and easier to keep moving forward even when things get challenging. The environment becomes a source of support rather than resistance. There is a quiet power in being intentional about where you place yourself and who you allow into your space. It is not about control, it is about awareness. Understanding that your surroundings are shaping you whether you choose them or not gives you the responsibility to choose wisely. Because in the end, you don't rise to your goals alone, you rise to the level of the energy that surrounds you. And when that energy is aligned with growth, purpose, and progress, it becomes one of the most powerful forces driving you toward the life you are trying to build most. People repeat the same mistakes daily, not because they can't improve, but because they never pause long enough to reflect. End the day with reflection, because without it, experience becomes repetition instead of growth. Every day you move, act, decide, and react. But if you never take time to look back, you miss the lessons hidden inside those moments. Reflection is what turns activity into awareness. It allows you to see clearly what worked, what didn't, and what needs to change. Without it, days blend together, and progress becomes accidental rather than intentional. Most people are busy from morning to night. They focus on doing more, achieving more, moving faster. But in that constant motion, they lose clarity. They don't notice patterns forming in their behavior. They don't recognize where they are improving or where they are holding themselves back. Reflection slows things down just enough for you to understand your own actions. It creates space between what happened and what it means. When you reflect, you begin to take ownership of your day. Instead of blaming circumstances or external factors, you look at your own decisions. You ask yourself honest questions. Where did I stay focused? Where did I lose control? What distracted me? What moved me forward? These questions are not meant to judge, they are meant to reveal. And what they reveal gives you the power to adjust. Reflection also strengthens awareness. You start noticing triggers, habits, and recurring thoughts. You see what consistently drains your energy and what consistently builds it. That awareness allows you to make better choices the next day. You are no longer reacting blindly, you are responding with understanding. Over time, this creates a cycle of continuous improvement. Another powerful effect of reflection is that it keeps you grounded. It reminds you that growth is a process, not a single event. Some days will feel productive, others will feel slow, but every day carries value if you take the time to learn from it. Reflection helps you appreciate small wins that might otherwise go unnoticed. It reinforces progress, even when it feels minimal. It also builds accountability. When you know you will reflect at the end of the day, you become more aware of your actions during the day. You start making choices with intention because you know you will revisit them later. This creates a level of discipline that is internal rather than forced. You are not acting based on pressure, you are acting based on awareness. Reflection is not about overthinking or dwelling on mistakes. It is about observing without emotion and learning without resistance. It is about being honest without being harsh. You are not there to criticize yourself, you are there to understand yourself. That distinction is important because growth requires clarity, not self-doubt. Consistency in reflection creates clarity over time. You begin to see long-term patterns that you would never notice in a single day. You understand your strengths more deeply and recognize your weaknesses more clearly. That understanding becomes a guide. It helps you refine your actions, improve your habits, and align your efforts with your goals. Ending the day with reflection is a simple habit, but its impact is powerful. It transforms each day into a stepping stone rather than a repetition. It ensures that your effort is not wasted and your experiences are not ignored. It turns time into insight and action into improvement. Because in the end, it's not the number of days you go through that defines your growth. It's how many of those days you truly understand and learn from. And reflection is what makes that understanding possible.